Awesome. Hi, everyone. We're going to wait a while till everyone gets in. Give it a few, like 2 minutes or something. And then we'll get started.
Yeah, I think we probably can get started in a second here.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say maybe like 1 more minute. Making sure no one needs a link on Instagram. Really
I didn't even think to check.
I sent out a lot of links, so just people asking if it will be recorded. I'm like, yes, it will be recorded. So if you need to step away or anything, you can watch again later.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Liz, you want to take it away?
Sure. My name is Liz Spitzer, and I am one of the co-founders of the DYNC1H1 Association. Our association is a patient advocacy group for DYNC1H1 related disorders, with the goal of finding safe, effective treatments for individuals affected on our gene, as well as building community and helping our community with educational resources and support. Shannon, do you want to tell us about Deep Connections?
I'm Shannon. I'm community outreach at DEE-P. Also a medical mom. So I've lived this life for many years. And someone's using the ice machine behind me. But here at DEE-P, we love providing resources to families and support. We have over 75 webinars from topics ranging to treatment, to traveling with your kiddo with that's medically complex. We're open to always hearing about other topics people want to learn about, which is great because Liz brought this up to us and we just were like, this is awesome. We'd love to hear from Abby. And what else? We love working with other agencies and just other groups, other nonprofits, because a lot of the people we serve, they have rare epilepsy conditions. So when we're all together, we're stronger. And yeah, we love that. So that's kind of what I do here, and what DEEP's all about is just, yeah, same thing, helping people learn and find resources, and we're here for you, whatever you may need.
Yes, we're very excited to have Deep partnering with us also just to make sure this gets a bigger reach because they, like they said, bring together so many of the different rare epilepsies. So it's nice to work together, and highly recommend if you are in your PAG to try to get them to connect with Deep as well. But without further ado, we want to introduce our main speaker today and why you're all here. So today we have Abby Zachritz with us, who's better known as Advocacy Abby on Instagram and her website and wherever else you might find her. So Abby, we'd love to hear a little bit about your story and how you came to be Advocacy Abby and what inspired you to create this page.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me today. I'm actually really excited to share with you guys today and just to hear more about what you guys are doing and see how we can connect or if I can support anybody listening today. My name is Abby Zachritz. I'm a mom of 5 kiddos. Been married to my college sweetheart for 21 years. And when we were pregnant with my 5th child, my last child, my surprise, my 4th child, Wyatt, had a near drowning accident. And so that thrust us into this world of recovery and disability, and just a world that I had never experienced before. We had no family members that we knew of. We've since found out that we do have family members with disabilities or diagnosis. But at the time we were completely new to this world. And what I realized was I was going to be my son's biggest advocate, and that if he was fighting as hard as he was, we had to fight just as hard. And so started doing research, hearing from mom to mom about what was out there, what people were seeing. And I quickly realized that insurance did not cover a lot of things that my son needed access to. And so, like any mom, I started doing research and found ways. And we did not have a lot of means at the time, financial means, but we were finding grants and foundations that would cover things to get our son what he needed, from equipment to therapy to treatment. And I would get a random message from a mom or a dad saying, "Hey, how did you find this?" Or "How did you pay for this? This is really expensive." And I would just tell them. And I realized over time that I could do that on a larger scale. I created a group called Relentless Hope on Facebook and started just sharing there, interviewing experts. And every Friday I would do this thing called #Fabulous Foundation Friday. And I realized that what people really were interested in was the foundations. They they liked the community, but they really wanted to know about the foundations. That I always had the most engagement there. And then in 2022, 23, my son started having seizures, and that kind of swept me out of that world for a little bit, because we had to get that under control and figure out the cause. And I came back onto Instagram and just decided, I'm just going to give away all the grants that I know about. I'm just going to start posting. Maybe nobody wants to know about them. I don't know. So I started posting. I did a thing called 30 for 30. You can go in my history and see when I started. I was like, for 30 days, I'm going to share 30 grants. And it was insane. Like, people were like, yes, I need grants. I need things for therapy. I need things for equipment. I need safety things for my kids. And none of them were covered by insurance, or if they were, it was only minimally covered, or the items they didn't want, right? They were like not the best items that they wanted for their kids. And so started sharing that. And out of that became Advocacy Abby. Started my page where I consult companies and individuals to help clients get what they need, regardless of their financial means or their insurance coverage. And I've had a really good success rate. Started developing tips and started seeing trends about what will work, how people can best fundraise, how they can best use grants, and have just seen a lot of success for families. And so, yeah, I'm here to share about that today.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for the background. So yeah, we'd love to, it sounds like you touched a little bit on different types of grants that are available, like equipment, therapies, medical bills, home modifications, van modifications. Are there other big categories that we're missing here? And then when eventually I'll have you talk about your connector site, but are you mostly looking at US based grants, international?
Yeah, so the majority of my grants are US. I do have a bunch in Canada as well. That market is growing really rapidly. As I get lists, as we have people come to us and say, well, we're looking for this, they tend to bring like, this is the resources I have, and we're just absorbing those into the database. And I do have some international. We've picked up a few in the UK, Argentina, some Africa and Asia. That is definitely limited, but there are some grants that will serve anyone around the world that fits that diagnosis. And so on my platform Connect, we've made it searchable by your location and your diagnosis. And sometimes it's broad. So like, my son has CP, but he also has epilepsy. So we put both those diagnoses in there to really open up which grants he could qualify for. But yeah, so the majority is the United States. And the majority of those are pediatrics, but that is also growing because these kids are growing up, right? They're aging out of the system, and I want to be a place where anybody can come and find resources. So we don't limit by anything. If it's a grant, even for a sibling, we have that kind of stuff in there. And so we're really trying to be as broad as possible when it comes to the database, and then exclusive when it comes to your search, so that you don't waste a lot of time trying to figure out, what your kid needs. You can really slim it down by our search criteria.
So that actually leads into my next question. So where do you recommend families start if they're feeling really overwhelmed and like maybe have multiple different needs between medical bills and therapies and equipment? Like, how do you, I guess, give some guidance on kind of like honing in?
Yeah. So I do have a prioritization checklist. So first, I think if you go to my website, if it's not there, I'll send it to you guys and you guys can send it out. I don't know if it's on the website or if it's not. But the first thing is prioritizing what your needs are, because if you're like me, I'm like, my kid needs some academic stuff. They need stuff out of school. He needs therapies. He needs this treatment. He needs these pieces of equipment. This would be nice to have. So what I would do is make a list, and then what is your number one in each area? Like, what's your number one thing for therapy? What's your number one thing for equipment? What do you need most? And then out of those number ones, which one do you need to get first? And that's where I would start. I'd spend my energy on what you need first, because what could happen is if you apply, let's say you apply for one grant, they do equipment, therapy, or treatment, and you apply for one thing there and another thing at somewhere else, you might get a specialty stroller, and that's great, but you really need a wheelchair. Like, you have to have a wheelchair. And so I say spend your energy on what you need first, apply to a few organizations, especially if it's a larger cost. You're going to want to apply to a few organizations to get chunks taken out of that cost. And then go to what you need next and kind of go down that pecking order. But I think sitting down as a family, and I say as a family too, because sometimes you have to like weigh what's best for your family in the situation. So there's been times where we just couldn't do one more intensive at the time. Like, we just were like, we have to let this ship sail. There were other things that might be beneficial equally. And so we decided to take this path because we couldn't spend 3 weeks away one more time in that season of life. And so really sitting down and figuring out what's best for you and your family, for your child or for your loved one, and kind of going from that point on, and then starting to search through the database and organize based on that.
Awesome. And then this might be outside of your purview, but do you have, or like, does your website have any tips on preparing and writing grants, or like getting materials together, or things like that?
Yeah, so I teach on that. When I do my one-on-ones or when I consult with organizations, I teach on how to do that. And I'll kind of give you guys a little preview of that. And I've talked about this in my on my reels on my Instagram, and this will actually all these tips are going to be going into the Connect platform, just so you know. So people will be able to go there and they're going to be able to see like how to successfully fundraise for a wheelchair accessible van. How do I, do these things to the best of my ability? But my biggest tip is when your grant fatigue's real. If you have to apply for grants, like, if I have to tell my story one more time, I'm going to lose my mind, right? Like, so what I suggest is you make a file folder on your desktop, and I hope you guys are writing this down, because this will really help you in the future. So make a file folder, and you're going to put all the things you would need for a grant, and a little bit more, because some grants are going to be super specific. It's going to take a while to apply, but they might be giving you $10,000. And other grants are going to be like, just tell us these 3 things and you're done. So you're going to want to drag all this stuff into your file folder, so that when you do say, okay, we're ready to do this, and you start applying for grants, you're just dragging and dropping and copying and pasting. You're not having to spend a lot of time rewriting everything. You might rework it a little for that grant, but you're not having to start from the beginning. So first thing I recommend is writing your story, writing your child's story. Have a hopeful lens when you're writing this. So you're going to write about your kiddo. You're going to write about the struggles and the joys of your child. And then your last paragraph, you're going to write in there what you're asking for. That way, when you go to apply for something else, you can just delete that last paragraph and put in whatever you're changing. Like, so you go to therapy next time, you're saying, yeah, I need this wheelchair. And the next time you're saying, we need to get to therapy, because it just really saves you some time, and you can tweak a little bit, but you don't have to rewrite your whole story every single time. You need to have letter of diagnosis, letter of medical necessity, proof of income, 1040s or W-2s, a picture of the loved one you're asking for a grant for. Have all of that into your file folder. Denials. Some grants require that you've tried to get it through insurance. So a letter of denial, those can be your friends. So like that's a silver lining on denials. Like, throw those into your toolbox. And then when you start applying, it's so much simpler, and you'll have a higher success rate because you're going to have it all together. You're not going to get fatigued. You're not going to omit something. And one of the biggest tips is whatever they ask for, you have to submit. So if you don't have it, do not submit for it yet, because what they're going to do is they're going to move on. They're not going to call you and say, hey, you forgot your 1040. They're just going to say they didn't apply correctly. We have 1,000 other people to go through. And so I just really recommend getting it all in one place so it makes it easy for you so that you can apply when you need it.
That is a very helpful tip. So I would love for you to show us the connector website, since I'm guessing
Yeah.
there's some people here that haven't seen it. And then also, I know you've mentioned like you do some one-on-one coaching, how people can get in contact with you and the best ways to move forward if people have more personalized questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes. And also, as a reminder to everyone in the audience, please feel free to use the chat to ask additional questions, and we'll make sure they get asked to Abby.
Sorry, I'm just gonna make sure I have their website up. And this is the link, and I can put it in the bio, or if you guys want to throw it in the bio, for Connect. So this is the Connect platform. It's 100% free for families. So you're going to simply come here and you're going to create a free account. It's going to prompt you to answer a few questions, and then it's going to open you up to your site. On this site, it's going to be locked in by your location and your diagnosis, and you're going to be able to sort by what you're looking for. So before you do that, though, I wanted to show you this little lightning bolt. This means that these grants are pending review from you. So as new grants come in, and they are coming in every single day, we're adding new grants. If a grant fits your diagnosis once a week, we send out an email, and you'll get an email saying, hey, there's been a new grant updated, or a grant opened that was closed. So application was closed, but they've opened back up. Now, all of our grants are viable. They still exist, but sometimes they're open or closed depending on their application period. And so when you see this lightning bolt, that means it's pending review from you. We want to know if you want to hide it. You're like, this is not something my child will ever need. I'm going to favorite it. This is something I think I want to apply to for the future. I have applied and I've received. And you really want to make sure you do this, because it can be a lot. They're like, just right now for this diagnosis, this is for someone that lives in Illinois that has an undiagnosed diagnosis. And they have 10 pages of grants that they could potentially apply to. So that can feel overwhelming. So as you're searching, I recommend when you're at doctor's appointments, you wake up, you're having a moment of coffee, just look at these. You're going to click the lightning bolt and you'll say, I'm going to favorite this one. I don't need this one. And just do that, a few minutes a day. And then when you go into here, you'll be able to say, okay, I'm at a position where I need to apply. I'm going to actually look for equipment, and I'm going to look for one's equipment in my favorites. And then you're going to be able to start applying for these grants. And it'll save you a little bit of time. And then as you get your message saying, yeah, you've been approved, you'll be able to say, I've received from that grant. And then next year, or whatever the grant criteria is, maybe it's a dollar amount in a lifetime, maybe it's 3 times in a lifetime, maybe it's once a year, you can request as needed. You'll be able to go to, which ones have I actually received from? Okay, I've received from all of these. Let me go ahead and reapply, see if I can reapply for any of these. It'll save you a lot of time, and that's our goal. When you click a grant, it'll open up, it'll tell you about them. It'll tell you if there's any caveats, like anything you have to qualify, like you must be a U.S. citizen on this one. It'll say if you need financial verification, if you need a letter of medical necessity. So it'll help you know what you have to have access. Some people don't want to verify their income. That's okay. If it says required, then you can just move on to the next grant. It'll tell you any kind of, if there's an impairment that you have to have. So there's some grants that are only for vision impairment, and then so you might have lots of diagnoses that qualified, but then there must be an impairment as well. And so you can just read through if there is or isn't. It'll also tell you how often they accept applications, and it'll take you right to their website. So this is what I love about this. A lot of these websites are put together by moms and dads that saw a need and filled a need. And so sometimes it's not super easy to find the application. We've done that part for you. So if it's an email, like if it's you must email, it'll open up right to their email from your desktop, and you can say, hey, I'd like the application, or it'll take you right to the page. So this one takes you right to request assistance, and it tells you exactly what you need to do in order to request an iPad from this organization. Then when you go back, you can also look at, if you only want to look at grants that are currently open, you can click accepting applications, and that will eliminate anything that's not currently open. We we chose to keep things that are not open seen because we're reviewing these about every 30 days. But you might open it up and it might say, you know, November 1st, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is the perfect grant for me. I'm going to set an alarm on my phone. Because I want to apply for this for November 1st. So just wanted to keep those out there so that people knew, because a lot of them, sometimes they'll open up once a year. Sometimes they'll open up as they have funds. So it fluctuates. Sometimes they only approve quarterly, some do monthly. It really is at the discretion of the grant organization. So yeah, so once you have that, you just go through your lightning bolts and it just makes it super simple. There are lots of different, and this is becoming more and more segmented to help you with your search as we review them. Each time we're making it better and better. So here's a good example. Under service, we also added animal. So service used to be like therapies, treatment, anything. We used to have 2 categories, grants and services. Grants would be financial, and then services would be like therapies or treatment. We've since broken that up. We've left the categories because we're still reviewing them and still breaking them up more and more. But now you could go to, I just want to see service animals. Grants that'll help me with training or animals. And then you could see, okay, these are categories for this state, for these diagnoses that will help me get access to. And so we are diversifying this more and more. And so every month there will probably be another category. We're trying to make it as specific as possible. So like, for example, equipment, that could mean wheelchair. It could mean AFOs for people. And so our goal is to break that down into prosthetics and to have wheelchairs separated, but that will be, as we evolve, it will continue to evolve. Any questions on that?
No, this is incredible.
Yeah, and
I say
we're really
amazing.
grassroots. Like we haven't paid for advertising. We are literally just depending on parents to tell parents and therapists to tell parents and doctors to tell parents that this exists, and it really should help a lot of families.
Is
And
there
so-
a way, I just thought of a question. Is there a way, if we know of a grant that maybe isn't in your database, how we get that to you?
Yes, just email me, DM me, contact
Okay.
me any way possible.
And you guys kind of do all the legwork of.
Yep. You could say, hey,
Figuring it
like
all out.
yesterday I had somebody say, hey, there's a small grant in my county. Do you want it? I'm like, yes, because there's, 1 in 4 adults have a disability. People go through things all the time. And so like, you never know when that one small grant might totally change someone else's life. Also, when you go into these grants, let's say there's something incorrect. We're humans, we make errors. You can report the issue. It'll immediately pull up an email for you to say, hey, this is wrong. Or you can also say, hey, I don't see my diagnosis. Maybe you have a rare diagnosis and you don't see it. You can request me to add that. And it does 2 things when I add a diagnosis. 1, it makes our team aware that we need to find some grants for that diagnosis. And 2, it helps people feel seen. So even if it's rare, it'll go under rare diagnosis and it'll open you up to grants that have the general label of rare diagnosis. So it's really nice to, like, as a parent or an individual, to walk in and see that very rare diagnosis listed out, and we love to add those. So yeah, feel free to add anytime you don't see something.
And on that note, we just had a question from the audience that says, my child has a rare genetic condition that's not listed in the database. Do I just select diagnosis in that case?
I'd select rare diagnosis, but you can also select diagnosis, like rare only because there will be grants that are exclusive for rare disease or rare diagnosis that a general diagnosis would not qualify for. So I would do both. The general diagnosis is like the broadest, like you just have to have a diagnosis and we will help you with if you need these kind of things, right? Like if you need therapy, if you need a piece of equipment. But rare diagnosis will also offer that. So I would put both down. If you really want to just see what rare has, though, I would just leave rare. But yeah, they both should be able to help. And let us know. Just like I said, like just report, send an email. You can click any of these, or you can put, I think on the main page that's like, I don't see my diagnosis. or when you're signing in, it might allow you to do that, and it'll send an email to me, and I will go ahead and add it.
Awesome. Sorry. And yeah, I think it's also super helpful. I didn't realize that that your team emailed people each week with updated, so you don't have to keep continually going back to check too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why that sorting becomes nice, because once you have it all sorted, you'll actually see which ones are new. It won't just be in the list. So the lightning bolt, once you've gone through them, anytime you see that fresh lightning bolt, that means you need to review those. Those are new grants or newly opened that you haven't reviewed yet.
And while we're waiting to see if others have questions, can you talk a little bit about what you offer in your one-to-one coaching and what that looks like?
Yeah. So when people have needs from whatever it is, maybe you have a medical need, a wheelchair accessible van, you have a big schedule of therapies over the summer that you need to pay for, or insurance doesn't cover it all. I know for like my son, we did stem cell therapy, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and then functional neurology treatment all in 1 year, which none of which was covered by insurance. And so when you have a one-on-one with me, you just go to advocacyabby.com, you click the work with me section, it'll say individual coaching, and you can set up a time, and we just walk through your needs. We walk through the best strategy, what grants you can apply for. And then if it's a really big cost, I help walk through creating a support registry, and then, which you can actually, if you look at the bottom, you can see right here, this is my preferred registry because they take less out than GoFundMe. And so I always say to use, when I raised $10,000 for my son, 600 went to GoFundMe. And that 600 is a special tomato seat. That's all I kept seeing was they took my special tomato seat. So I Support Now has their registry where you can give the option to the donor to round up. And so 100% of the intended donation goes to the person receiving it, which I absolutely love. So I always encourage using their registry. And then, so for bigger items, we'll pair that with grants. So when I've had I do currently have a lady I'm working with on a wheelchair accessible van. We have found some grants for her. And so she put her full amount on a registry. And then as she's received those grants, she's let her community know, like, hey, I just got $5,000 towards the van. I wanted to let you guys know. And so, yeah, I work with people of all diagnoses, and some just, events that happen, and help them find resources, because like even bikes and things like that, I feel like, my neurotypical kids, their bike was $180. My son, with a noxic injury, his bike was $7,000. Like, that's not fair. That's not right. Right. So like, I believe these grants everybody should have access to these things. And I'm so thankful that we live in a world where people saw that and said, I'm going to make a difference, and I'm going to provide a grant for a kid that could use that. I said 7,000. I'm sorry. It was not 7,000. It was like 3,000. Something else was 7,000. His iPad was 7,000, or eye gaze device. But yeah, still totally, it's a bike. And yeah, so I'm thankful that there's these grants. I'm thankful for all these organizations that are on our Connect platform, because without them, there would be no Connect, there would be no need, because there wouldn't be a way to get it. Most people wouldn't be able to afford what our kids deserve.
And obviously, we've talked a little bit about grant fatigue, and it can be exhausting to apply. But if someone's looking to get a bike, for instance, how many grants do you suggest they apply to at once versus like applying and waiting? And
yeah, so like for the specialty bikes, there are a lot of grants in our platform that will just pay for the whole bike. They actually get partnerships with the organizations, and they just cover the full thing. I just got a Jossie stroller for my son using grants, which, if anybody knows what that is, it's like this really diverse stroller for larger kids. Well, it can be any kid, but my son is larger. That can be hooked onto a bike, that can go through the snow and sand, that can do all the things. Because we would go to the beach every year, and I'd have to carry him down to the beach, and he was much lighter years ago, and that was hard. Now he's almost 80 pounds. That's a lot on a person trying to trudge through the sand to take their kid just to participate in what the family's doing. And so that's an more expensive item. And so what I did was pair that with 2 grants and a little bit of fundraising. So the fundraising kind of came a different way than I normally do it, but I accidentally fundraised through it was kind of like a voting thing, and I didn't know that it had a fundraising section. So we actually fundraised $2,000, and then we got organizations to cover the other about 2,500 to, I'm sorry, it's total of 7,000. So to cover the rest. And so if you need something like that, if it's under 5,000, you can get a grant to cover it. You might need 2, but there's a good likelihood, especially on a piece of equipment or therapy, you could probably get a grant to cover it. If it's over 5,000, I recommend, depending on how urgently you need it, if you really need it fast, I would recommend pairing it with the support registry because you'll get it faster. Because grants take a little bit of time. Some approve monthly, some approve ongoing. That's not as common. A lot will approve quarterly. And so there is a little bit of waiting time, but it's worth it when you're, putting together a fundraiser for a $35,000 wheelchair accessible van. You can wait a little bit of time to get huge chunks, taken off the total. And so it's really what you're looking for, and then starting to go through the grants on the site. But that's something with the one-on-one coaching that I do. I kind of say, hey, apply for these ones first. Let's do this. This is our kind of plan of attack to get this done.
And then I know you mentioned your son didn't start having seizures until a little bit later in life. Is that possible on the Connect website to, if someone develops epilepsy or another diagnosis, to add diagnoses, a year into having an account or something?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can just edit your diagnosis. If it's locked in for any reason, just reach out to me and I'll get it sorted out for you. But yeah, it's sorry, I'm going to go over to my grants so you guys can see that again. You can go right to the edit button and add a little bit. The difference is for we do have a providers account that providers can access that gives unlimited everything. That is a little bit different. You don't want that as an individual because it would be incredibly overwhelming, where they can do save searches. But for you, whatever your search is what it will be. So when you go and edit, just know, if you took away a diagnosis, that you're not going to see those grants. So you're going to want to make sure when you're editing, it is you either put it back to how you wanted it, or you add all the diagnosis.
Okay, that's
So
helpful.
I would just right here, I would just put epilepsy and then save. And now that's going to open to some more grants for this individual.
We have another question from the audience. Is the timing of getting these grants important? Do they need to come in at the same time? For instance, if you apply for 2 grants for a Jossie stroller and get one and not the other, does that create a problem?
Create a problem as in well, when you apply for grants and if they don't give it to you, you just move on to the next grant. So go ahead if you want to rephrase it for me. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't ask this question, but I have a feeling she's asking if you got $2,000, but you're not going to be able to fundraise the 5,000. Could you hold that and try to apply for another grant or
Yes. And most of these organizations will do that for you. If they know you're bringing in grants, they're going to wait for you. They're not going to, they can't just keep the money, right? So their options are refund the money or wait for you to get the rest of the money. Typically they're going to wait. They want the sell, right? They want their item sold. So when you start applying for grants, you're going to find out within a couple months. So it's not going to be that long of a hold. And as long as they know, there's another method though. If you are working with a vendor that says, no, I won't hold money when you send it, that's it, we're done. You could ask the grant organization if they would hold it till a certain date, because you're getting approval for the rest of the grants.
Okay.
And most grants are going to ask you, we're going to give you $2,000, but the bill's $7,000. Do you see yourself raising the rest, or what's your plan? And if you say, I've already had approval from another grant, I'm fundraising the rest, whatever, they'll be more likely to go ahead and say, yeah, okay, then I'll give towards it. And if you're working with me, I don't see that being a problem. If you do the techniques that I've mentioned today, like with fundraising, I don't like, did I mention techniques with fundraising yet?
Not yet.
Okay, well then I will. I talk about it a lot, so sometimes I lose
Okay.
track. But yeah, so when you're applying, like just I typically say like if if it's over 2, 3, 4,000, apply for 2. You don't get it, apply for another one. If it's 7,000, I apply for 4 to 5, sometimes 6 grants, because some of them are going to say no. They're going to be tapped. And so I always encourage, if you can apply for it and you need that item, go ahead and apply for it. And you can always reach out. Let's say you get the full amount. Let's say the first 3 grants you apply for, all say yes, and you had already applied for 2 more. Reach out and say, hey, guess what? I got it fully funded. Thank you so much. And here's something I would encourage. Like, let's say you need therapy though, too. Thank you so much. I got this device fully funded, but I saw you do therapies as well. Would you consider transferring my application to this? Or if you don't need it, just say, bless someone else. Like, I hope you can bless someone else, and just leave it at that.
I kind of have a question that's like piggybacking off of this one. It made me start thinking about, is there a way to either filter in the system, or like, for example, we really wanted a wonderful wagon for my daughter, and we were on a waiver program and we got a budget every year, but we weren't able to get the wagon because we had to go through a DME. Are a lot of these grants, do they pay directly to the DMEs, or can like you get money deposited in your account so you can go buy the wonderful wagon yourself? Kind of, how does that work?
They would pay directly to the Wonderful Wagon company.
Okay, so they go order it for you or whatever.
Yeah, they would.
Is there a way to
So some of them
filter
will
it?
say, send us the link. We're going to order it for you. Some will say, get the quote. And then you get the quote from them, and then they'll pay based on, like, most quotes will have, like with the Jossie stroller, they sent us a quote with where to pay, like how to pay your bill.
Okay.
And they sent it directly from the quote. That's one of the things, quote is one of the things you're gonna want in your toolbox.
Okay.
So when you're looking for an item, try to get a quote, because they're gonna want to know, where can I pay this and how can I pay it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Awesome. So is there a way on the website to filter, or is it just you have to go through the grants and see
Every
if they
grant's different.
require a
Yeah.
DME or
Well,
something
they're
like
not
that?
going to say DME. They're not going to say
Okay.
you have to go through a DME company. They're just going to need
Okay,
the
gotcha.
quote to pay for the item.
Okay,
So
cool.
if you're using a wheelchair company and you want this brand, and your DME submitted to insurance and it was denied, they'll just get, because the DMEs, they're just the middleman anyway, right? Like, so
Right.
you can then contact the wheelchair company. Some of them, like some grants, all they do is wheelchairs, so they might have a pre-existing relationship with some of the brands. Like some of them will say actually on it, like, we work with Rifton, Jossie, and they'll list out which ones they work with. It's probably because they've negotiated some kind of great rate. So they will tell you their process to get it. And others will just say, send us the quote.
Cool, thank you.
You're welcome.
Liz, do you want to, I don't think we have any, do we have any more
Yeah,
questions?
so there's another
Oh, yeah. Go
question.
ahead.
I think I could answer this, but just in case others have a question, I want to make sure that it gets asked out loud. It says, my son is multiple disabled. He would qualify for deaf and blind, epilepsy, and CP due to a rare genetic condition. Should I mark everything?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And then just when you're looking, you're going to see lots of stuff. If you get overwhelmed, just edit it, go back, start with one. So we initially started, when we were trying to categorize things, so many things are sometimes hard to categorize because multiple diagnoses could have another diagnosis, if that makes sense. So we had impairments like vision, hearing, but that might be under another diagnosis. Like my son has CP, but he has a vision impairment, he has critical vision impairment. So like we're trying to navigate the best way to do that. So we went ahead and eliminated the impairment sort because we didn't want to limit someone from access to a grant. But when you go into grants, let me actually see if I can pull up, there's one in particular. It's AG Bell. Let me see if it's under this one. Actually, not AB Bell, AG Bell. So this grant is specifically for hearing impaired. However, that does not have to be your only diagnosis to get it. And so when you go into here, it should show impairment, hearing loss. So this will let you know, like, because you might look at this and go, oh, preschool financial aid, that's fantastic. I need to apply for that. But then if your child doesn't have hearing loss, they wouldn't qualify. So just be aware of that when you're searching, because the whole goal is to make it less cumbersome for you to find which grants work for you. And so everything we put in here is for your discernment to help it make it easier. And so she had mentioned the vision impairment and hearing impairment. Although I have added them as diagnosis, not every single thing has been categorized yet. And so just look for the impairment section. And hopefully that'll be helpful.
And then I know you have at least one freebie on your website about insurance. Can you share a little bit about that and how
Yeah,
people
let me see if I can take you guys over to Advocacy Abby. Okay. So this is my website. If you click work with me, that'll take you to individual coaching or corporate consulting for organizations. There's so much that insurance and Medicaid could pay for that they won't mention to you. So I highly recommend getting this little download. There were things that I paid for years that I had no idea that they would cover. And the perk of that was, for example, one of the things that they were covering that they pay for was pest control because of my son's condition. I had been paying out of pocket for that. Well, that's $100 a month that I could then put towards an intensive or put towards a piece of equipment or put towards something. And so finding out these little key things that they might cover was really nice. And then I have some others. I had the one, what did I mention to you guys? The prioritization list. I can send that out to you. I don't have it on the website, but I do have it downloaded. So I'm happy to send it to you if you guys want to use it as a resource.
That would be awesome. And I know you said when we were chatting before the webinar started that you are trying to be really intentional with not spamming people in the newsletter, so they won't be getting like countless emails, just things that are.
No, when I do my newsletter, it's once a week, but I've been readdressing my newsletter. I was telling them that I want it to be like something people look forward to, and so I'm revamping it. So there's not currently one going out. And when there is, and if there is, you can always unsubscribe. So
another question, does it matter what state you live in?
No, all 50 states we have grants for. International and Canada too. Canada, I will have provinces up soon. I'm working heavily with Canada. They seem to have a lot of incentives for organizations that serve communities like that reach out to like my son. And so there's a lot of things up there, but I'm also, all 50 states are listed and we have grants for all 50 states.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And there's a lot of, if you put like, let's say you put Arkansas, you're still going to see all the national grants, like things that cover the entire US. You're not going to eliminate something by so don't put USA, put Arkansas, because then you're going to also see the specific grants only for Arkansas.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Those are so far the only questions we've had, but please ask more. Oh, we just got one. Are most of the grants need-based and so ask for financial statements?
I'd say many, yes, not all. I have several grants that I've seen people use, whether through my coaching or just using Connect, that do not ask about finances because those organizations get it. So it costs a parent $240,000 to raise a neurotypical healthy kid. It costs a parent $1.4 million to raise a child with a diagnosis on average. That's by the Department of Agriculture. So you can look up the stats that just came out. That's a lot. And so they realize like on paper, you could be making a lot of money and still spending an insane amount of money for your child's care. And so if you don't have a waiver and you're just on private insurance, I mean, your bills can be even if you're on Medicaid, your bills can be insane because what's not covered by insurance. And so, yeah, there are several grants that are not income-based and some that do require financial verification, but it's not to limit you. It's just to prove different things. Every grant's different. And so some of them will have some caps that are way above poverty level. Some will be like, you have to be at poverty level. They just really vary grant to grant. So you can, as you're going through your list, your custom list, just hide the ones. If you're like, I don't feel comfortable, hide it and move on.
Oh, did you want to go over your fundraising techniques?
Oh yeah, sure. Okay, yeah. I'm sorry, I had the chat up earlier and I forgot I was sharing my screen. So I'm sorry if I shared people's questions if they're direct. I'm so sorry. So when you're fundraising, I've already told you guys, I 1000% recommend Support Now Registry. They have a 93% success rate of getting 100% of the donations to the person it's intended. So you get to keep more money. And they also have like lend a hand. So if you're ever using it when you need help, like besides financial help, that you can turn on things like, could you pick up my kids? Could you take out the trash? Can you help me with my yard? We're in the hospital, you know. Those things are really, really helpful, and meals as well. So you can also turn off the money and just do it for lending a hand and meals. But when you create your support registry, there's 3 steps, and these are proven steps. These are not suggestions. These 100% work if you do them. So first is you need to have a very clear and concise story about what you're asking for and why, and be specific. If you say things like, it's just really hard raising a child with disability, this is so hard, we need help, our bills are getting behind, people aren't going to give to that. You need to say, hey, we need $7,000. We're trying to cover the out-of-pocket therapies that weren't covered. We're trying to buy this piece of equipment. We're trying to modify this part of our home. This is what it's going to. Be specific. Also, share some joys about your life. Like we all know that it can be really, really hard, right? Like, and it can become a very negative space at times. And so share the struggle, but also say something wonderful about your family or your child, or something that like lights your heart up about them. Because it really does, or about your community. You could say, I know my community is there for us, and you guys have loved us so well, and I'm just so thankful. But have some kind of joy in your message, because people want to cheer you on. And if they feel like it's like, and I'm saying from this as a parent who knows how dark it can get. Okay, guys. So I'm not saying this lightly, and I don't want to discount anybody's pain. So I'm just reminding that people want to cheer you on and see that they can help. And if they feel like it's so dark they can't help, it's really hard, and they're going to cry, and they're going to turn off their computer, and they're going to walk away. And so I just want to encourage you to tell people the truth, be honest about what it's for, be honest about the struggles, but remind them that they're helping you. And because of their generosity, your child's going to get XYZ. Okay. So like, I want to encourage you to have that silver lining as you lay out the struggles. Next, get a team. I always say 8 to 10 people. That seems overwhelming to people, but on that 8 to 10, you're just going to say, hey, I created this registry, or I created this registry for someone. All we're asking is that you'll share how you know the family and that they're a real person, and ask you to share once a week for the next 6 to 8 weeks. We're just trying to reach this goal for them. You're not asking them to give, you're just asking them to share. That's really important. Your influence, if you got 8 to 10, just went out, 8 times the amount of influence that you just have by yourself. But even if you only get 4 people that say, yeah, I'll do that for you, that's 4 times the reach that goes out to people. And so, when they share and say, hey, this is my neighbor, they're going through a hard time, consider giving, it carries a lot more, because we've all seen registry share, right? When people just share a registry, they don't say anything. How often do we just go swipe, right? But when somebody says, hey, this is my daughter's teammate, her family's going through a tough time, please consider giving. I just want you to know, if you can't give, just share and pray. People are more likely to actually read about the story. So that's what you're asking from that team of people, that 8 to 10 people. Just share and tell them how you know us. And then the next week, just share and give an update. Hey guys, we were able to raise $1,000 for this family. I'm so thankful for my community. Keep telling people, keep sharing. And that's all they're going to do. That's the commitment of the team. And then commitment from you guys is to post daily. And I know that seems like a lot, but you're asking for your community to come around you. And so your commitment is to share with your community. You don't have to share all the details, all the private stuff, but you can share part of the journey. You can say, hey, I can't believe somebody gave, $20 today. That totally blessed me. Thank you so much. Or, hey, look at the entryway and take a little picture. This is the entryway to my house. As you can see, a wheelchair will never get into this. That's what your giving is going towards. Thank you so much. Or, hey, here's a video of me lifting my kid's wheelchair into my van that will not be liftable soon. This is what you're giving towards. Thank you so much. And it's just updating. Or, hey, I had a really hard day today. I cried in the doctor's office. It was a crappy day. Being able to see what you guys have done for me is very encouraging. Thank you for being the bright spot on my day. And that's your commitment. So like I say, there's a commitment to have a clear, concise ask, and don't have paragraphs, lots of paragraphs, because people don't read. We even audible everything these days, right? Like we listen, we consume quickly. And so concise, clear ask, a team of 8 to 10 people, and a commitment to post so people can go on that journey with you because they want to see success for your family. If that's getting devices for epilepsy, like so you get alerted, which there's a lot of grants for that, by the way, and Connect. If it's taking your kid to a treatment that you might help you guys, whatever it is, they want to walk that path with you. Because when they give, they really are saying, we are with you. Like we're cheering you on. And so just include them on the journey. And that really leads to a successful fundraiser. And there's other ways too. If you've exhausted your community, but you have a big need, there are other ways that I go through that I'm happy to talk with anybody one-on-one about. That is more of a effort versus auctions, different things like that, that really raise a lot of money that I can help anybody with if they need that.
Those are amazing tips.
Yeah.
I know people can feel uncomfortable starting, but it's helpful to have some guidance to jump in there.
Yeah, and it's
Even
nice to have that
amplifying
team.
it, yeah.
Yeah, the team of people too. Like that really helps. When your friends and family start sharing, you feel like, okay, I'm seen, I'm supported, they got my back. It's not just me kind of inching it out like, hey guys, I need help. It's a loud voice going out all at once. So that's really, that part is really important.
Mhm.
We have about 5 more minutes. Does anyone have any remaining questions?
I think everyone's probably just excited to start going and filtering and looking at things because yeah, it's a really great resource. I'm super excited for the community. They'll start going in and playing around and making their little folder. I think that's really great. I'll definitely be sharing that. I did take some notes.
Awesome. Yeah.
The
No,
file folder and having it all in. That's
yes.
great. A great tip. Oh, we have a
Grant
question that
fatigue.
just came in.
I know that Gabi put the
great
link
info.
in the chat, but we'll also make sure it's on both the DYNC1H1 website and the Deep Connections website, so underneath the recording, so that people can easily find both the Advocacy Abby website and the Connector site. There have been, they're not necessarily questions, but just people saying thank you. This has been great info.
Yes.
I hope it's helpful. I'm a firm believer everybody should have access to these things. And so, yeah, if the community listening, if you guys are willing to share about Advocacy Abby on Instagram and tag me so people know, and then the Connect website, it would mean a lot to me.
A lot of thank yous. Well, thanks so much, Abby and Liz. Thanks. We love partnering with you guys on this, and hopefully the recording will be up in a few days and we'll get it pushed out to the rest of the community. I know everyone's super excited just to have this information, and it's such a great resource. So I appreciate all your hard work, Abby. I know that, my goodness, like just the website in general, I know is a lot of work, but that you continually to update it and send out the emails and everything. It's just so amazing.
Oh,
On
you're
top of
welcome.
for what
caregiving
you're
and
doing.
having 5 kids.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Forgot
Well, I
about
have a
that.
small army of people updating the grants. So it does, but that's part of our commitment to everybody is we want it to be living, breathing. There's too many sites that I've gone to that half of them were not even functioning grants anymore, which was so disheartening when you're in that place of need. So yeah, hopefully it's helpful to everybody here.
It's incredible.
Yay. Thanks so
Thank you
much.
so much.
Awesome. Well, the recording will be up soon on the websites, and follow Abby on Instagram and share with your friends.
Thank
Thanks,
you so much.
everyone. Have a
Thank
great day, everybody.